The Small Business Development Minister says a new funding policy will provide better financing opportunities for small and medium enterprises. It comes as she presented the budget for her department, while the Minister, Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, joins us tonight. Minister Ndabeni-Abrahams, good evening to you. Thank you for your time. You talked about the need to increase funding to small businesses, but also to make it easier for them to access these funding, because a lot of the agencies, such as USIFA, there've been a very high number of complaints against them, and as far as the turnaround times that small businesses experience. But I think generally access seems to be a very big issue.
Good evening, Kathy, and good evening to all the viewers at home. Yes, I fully agree with everything that you have said. We are a bit concerned, Kathy, by the pace that our agencies are taking in terms of the turnaround times for our small businesses to access the funds that they've applied for. This is why we said there's a need for us to focus on specific areas. And at the center of that is ensuring that we do away with red tapes. And the basic things on the red tapes is to start with doing away with the lot of paperwork that we have, including people that must go on filling 80 pages with a terminology that is understood only by business consultants or the agency staff. We are serving a nation, and our constituency talks to both the illiterate and the literate people. Therefore, the language in our documents has to be simplified. That's one thing. But at the center of it is the unnecessary requirements at times that would ask for small businesses. What is important is that there should be evidence that indeed there's a business that is running. Secondly, this business has a potential, and indeed the person that we are funding is a person that exists and that will have a capability of paying back the fund if we have given access to. That's why we said we've been really following the special planning of South Africa, wherein it's concentrated on certain provinces, wherein much of the budget goes to. Now, if we are to address that, we need to make sure that small businesses in all provinces have access to finances in order for them to be able to drive industrialization and therefore participate meaningfully in the economy where they are, without them having to leave their provinces. And the first thing to do is to ensure that they have access to finance. That's why we said we are increasing funding. We continue to engage also with National Treasury in terms of ensuring that if there's more demand, our people will be able to get more money, because it's about developing small businesses that must in turn create jobs for our country.
The challenges that you have spoken about and highlighted where the agencies of the department are concerned, those are not new. And I want to know from you, Minister, are there specific timelines around the turnaround that you are talking about? You've tabled it as part of this financial year, so the assumption is that you would want to see a very big difference within this current financial year. But speak to me about the exact timelines that you want these agencies to be working within.
We have given them 60 days as a maximum period for any application that goes to SEDA or SIFA. They should have processed the applications by that time. But the second element was to say, let us digitize our services, because also if our products are not automated, then it tells you that there's a stringent process of the manual work that must be done from branch level, region, province, and up to national. But if it is digitized, it's easy to pick up anything that may be missing from an application, and therefore be able to quickly alert the applicant that you have submitted insufficient information. Make sure that you provide us with whatever that is required. And just like the banks do, we believe that after some time we'll be able to be responsive in a reasonable particular period. But now we are taking into consideration the realities that we're operating in, which is why even when we would have introduced that digital platform that we said the teams must work on, at least we're going to introduce a hybrid model for those that still believe in manual, walking into our branches and being able to do the work that we do. That's one element. The second element is beefing up our capabilities in terms of the expertise that our officials must have. If you go to the banks and you're applying for a housing bond, there's a person who deals with that specifically. If you're applying for a vehicle loan, there's a person who deals with that specifically. Therefore, we're also trying to categorize the products that we are offering and therefore get experts that must be able to pay attention, not just be emotional about the approval of a business plan that is there.
All right.
That's one of the things that will ensure that when we approve you, we are confident that indeed this is going to be a sustainable business, because we would not have only done due diligence, but would also provide post-investment support. At the center of that, again, is accessibility in terms of the presence where people are at. That is why in the speech, again, we committed that we're going to establish 80 more service access centers closer to where people are, because we've been going throughout the provinces as part of our roadshows, and people are complaining that for them to access certain services, they need to take certain taxis to very far towns, and it is costly to them and time consuming. Therefore, we are trying to address some of the things that have been raised whilst we are looking at the capabilities that we are building internally.
You also spoke about the issue of red tape, and we know the President in his State of the Nation address spoke about the appointment of Sipho Nkosi in the Office of the Presidency to reduce the red tape. Talk to me about the conversations that you as the Department of Small Business are having with Mr. Nkosi. Have you met yet? What are some of the things that you have identified and working together on? Because I would imagine there'd need to be very close collaboration between the two of you.
We are working very closely with Mr. Nkosi as the leading and coordinating department on small business development. It becomes very critical to say, what are these matters that we identify as red tapes? For example, if you're talking about a farmer who has some land somewhere, although they have a lake, they do not have access to water rights. And these are the things that we're talking about to say, Mr. Nkosi will help us complement the work that we do, because we can support up to a particular level in terms of the specific mandate that we have. At the center of the work that Mr. Nkosi is doing is coordinating all the stakeholders, and what gives him therefore much power is that he's sitting in the presidency. Therefore, whether you are a Stella of small business development or you are a Togo Digiza of agriculture, what you are looking at is the development of small business, and therefore the role that your department is supposed to play, it must play within the defined period. Kathy, one of the things that we have acknowledged is that we have not invested much in small business development. And that has led to us not being able to create more jobs and also our economy not growing. And we all agree in cabinet, actually, even the private sector, that we must join hands in trying to do away with the red tapes. Whether we talk about the bylaws at a municipal level, which is why we're engaging everyone to say, your bylaws are excluding some of the small businesses. Whilst people are not looking at that, but they're just looking at times at revenue generating initiatives, but there's another impact that affects negatively the small businesses. So we're scrutinizing all of those and identify to say, Mr. Nkosi, these are the areas that we have identified, and we agreed on critical projects. Like, the first thing that we need to do is to review the legislation, both that we are responsible for in terms of the Business Act as the department, but also other legislations in other departments. If you have observed, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Minister Nkosi, issued a policy on national labor policy on migration. And what we did there was to make sure that we identify a niche for small businesses to say which sectors must be reserved for South African-owned businesses. Because some of the things people are complaining that, Minister, we do want to participate in the space. There's no support because there are people who are crowding the space, and what makes things worse is that some of them are trading illegally. No. Now, that is something that requires collaboration between us, Minister Nxesi, Minister Motsoaledi, and Minister Stella to say, how do we join hands, including SARS, to come on board and make sure that everybody that trades in our country trades in a legal way and we all respect the legislations, whilst government is trying to do their part. But we also expect all the sectors, including the small businesses themselves, to play their part.
Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, we'll leave it there for tonight. She's the Minister of Small Business.